Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's stream. Welcome in chat Alice Rocks. If you're not following Alice Rocks, please do. They are one of Twitch's best new DJs, and I can say that because it's true. Also Sydney is a great streamer. Hello Ditch. Oh, you're sleepy, sorry about that. You don't, if you need to go and sleep, Ditch, that's absolutely okay. Hello Thelonious, good to see you. No, that's fine, Alice. That's great. I'll give you a shout out. Okay, so there is a little innovation tonight. If things are getting a little dark, things are getting a bit gruesome, I've created a scene that will helpfully guide us through. Yep. It's a picture of my cat being silly. If Polly doesn't turn up, I now have Polly available. Admittedly, I could have chosen a picture of her where she doesn't look like she's being completely silly. But where's the fun in that? Yes, Ditch came round the other day and Polly loves him now. He is no longer man who took me to vet. Here's now Cuddles option. So there we go. Right, we've got 3 main stories tonight and a couple of small ones. Sorry, we'll say that. I've got 3 main stories tonight and a couple of small ones. Ditch says bring on the copycat llamas. You'll be disappointed to know I've not done either copycats or llamas tonight. I was going to do the yogurt story I found when you mentioned yogurt last week, but I'm going to be honest. Once I've read fully into it, I thought this is far too depressing to do on this live stream. It's a complete vibe kill, right? And you've seen the things I have talked about. So just imagine how depressing this is. So we're not doing the even you drew the line. Yeah, I found the line, Ditch. I found the line. So it may turn up as a dedicated YouTube video. It will probably not turn up on this because it's not. It wasn't good. Although when you see what I've got tonight, you'll be sat there going, Jesus, what did he find? Anyway, we've got 3 things tonight, plus a couple of shorts. And we'll see how we go. So we'll get on into it. So I assume everybody in chat has heard of the book series and TV show Dexter. Which was essentially a serial killer who worked in forensics and killed other serial killers. Tonight I'm going to tell you about the real Dexter. And I'm not just saying that with a bit of, I'm a presenter hyperbole. I mean, it's the character, the bloke that wrote Dexter said, I wrote Dexter because I read about this guy and I thought I've got to turn him into a story. Not Dexter Fletcher, sadly. Although, his role in Doom was different. Hello, Tegan. So I missed you, Tegan. Hello, Tegan. No, nothing about it. That's good. Right. All you need to know, Thelonious, is that the character of Dexter is a blood splatter expert in an American forensics. I think it's Florida. But he's also a serial killer. But his dad realised he was a serial killer, so he trained him to only kill other serial killers. I think that's essentially the plot. And it turns out that Dexter was highly influenced by a real person. Sort of. So when he was in prison, Pedro Rodrigues Filho was Brazil's most deadly serial killer, with perhaps over 100 killings to his name. But weirdly, he was released and became a huge media star. Part of this was his promotion of non-violence and non-vigilantism, but part of this was his claim he only killed other criminals, mainly drug dealers, murderers and rapists, which directly saw him influence the character of Dexter, which became huge on TV. As I go through this story, I want you to consider in your mind whether this man is, as he would like to be, spicy Batman, or whether he's just a self-righteous maniac. I think you can tell which one I think. Right, so let's get into it. Pedro Rodrigues Filho, the real Dexter. I believe Filho is sort of Brazilian for... Actually, it's funny you should say that, Ditch. He's known as both the Brazilian Dexter and the Brazilian Punisher. I felt for this introduction, Dexter would be more of a sort of obvious one. But yeah, Punisher works equally well. Filho is sort of, I believe, is sort of Brazilian for junior. So I'm just going to call him Pedro. We're not on first name terms. But I don't really want to have to murder his name the whole time. So Pedro's sort of easy. So Pedro was born on October 29th, 1954 in a farm in Santa Rico de Sapucaí, Brazil. Unfortunately, he was born with a damaged skull, gained during an act of domestic violence, his father beating his pregnant mother. Some people would like to draw a possible connection between early brain injuries and propensity for serial killing. I don't have enough knowledge on that to go into more detail at this moment. And I feel it's a bit harsh to leap into that conversation, considering the vast number of people that have early brain damage and don't murder people. I'm not sure this is a yes, this is like he was damaged when a man beat and kicked his pregnant mother, and this was nicer than your story you didn't go with. I assure you, this is nicer. All of these are nicer than the story I didn't go with. That's how terrible it was. The father often beat his mother after drinking. Pedro had a difficult relationship with his father. As you'll find out, I'm using the word difficult very inappropriately. I'm telling you the bad story on Saturday. Okay. For the rest of his life, he had a noticeably deformed head. People have wondered if this affected him on a chemical level. Despite this, he was a healthy child, and while his father was a problem, he formed a strong bond with his grandfather, who taught him to hunt and fight. The former was necessary because the family were poor and they needed to supplement their food by hunting. And the latter was necessary as Pedro lived in a very rough area. He was also taught how to butcher those animals, unfortunately. It's possible he was taught that drinking the blood of strong animals gave him strength. As we'll see, that is also a problem. And then to support the family, he worked at a slaughterhouse. Thelonious is saying, I want to hear the other story now. Yeah. We'll see. He was 13 when he first felt something rise inside him, the urge to kill. He was beaten up by a cousin, humiliated, and felt the desire to kill him. But he let this sort of float around in his head for a while, until he was working with his cousin on a sugarcane press, which is, as you might imagine, two very large things that come together. He then attempted to push his cousin into it. The cousin's arm got mangled. He tried to push his head into it. Fortunately, his head didn't get mangled. And then he tried to carve his cousin up with a blade. Workers stopped this and the cousin survived. And the incident was partly covered up by the family and partly he was let off because he was a minor. Pedro felt he had righted a wrong through attempted murder and it felt good. And apparently he spent time at family events taking the mickey out of his cousin for, well, crushing his arm and nearly ripping his head off. So if you ever feel that your family events are a bit difficult, at least there's nobody there bragging that they nearly murdered one of the other people having a drink. Anyway, this combination of I've righted a wrong through murder floated around his mind for a year until he was 14. At this point, his father had been fired from his job as a school guard after being accused of theft. Pedro believed the real thief, another guard, had set this up, and the government effectively blacklisted his father. He couldn't get another job. So Pedro decided to take his grandfather's gun, kill the deputy mayor in front of City Hall, and then kill the security guard. As this wasn't exactly the most stealthy operation in the world, Pedro fled to Greater Sao Paulo, where he lived with his godmother. He joined a gang, entered into a sexual relationship with the woman in charge, bearing in mind he's still 14 at this point, and drew the jealousy of the others. This ended with him killing gang members who were going to kill him. His boss lover was then murdered. As you can see, it's not going terribly well for him, or for that matter, what's left of his psyche. He decided to support himself by theft, but only of certain people. He said he robbed drug dens, and while he was there he killed the drug dealers. Pedro then met and fell in love with Maria Botina Olympia, and she became pregnant. Sadly, a rival gang killed Maria. Pedro decided that there was only one course of action, killing every single member of the gang. Unfortunately, it was hard to know who was in the gang, so he got hold of the gang members he knew, tortured them for information and killed them, and then killed anyone else who thought might help. It went on like this until the estranged wife of a gang boss said to Pedro, "My husband organised it," and he managed to erase the whole kill group, finally walking in with two mates into a wedding, killing 7, injuring 16 others, and just wiping them out. Now, you may notice I said a gang boss. It's not entirely clear if this gang boss actually did organise it, or if this woman just directed Pedro, this completely ongoing bomb, into her husband's gang. Anyway, in fact, he killed so many people, the news called him Pedrino Matador. I don't think I need to translate that. He became a local legend. He may also have been drinking the blood of his victims. Yeah, completely so. And when a man dumped his cousin after getting her pregnant, he executed him as well. I mean, it's not looking great on the spicy Batman front, is it? Hi, Tom. Great to see you in. Tom Hansen is a fantastic drummer. Please do follow Tom if you like rock drumming. I hope you do. Hope you and your wife are doing well, Tom. Oh, Ditch, it's not even begun. Ditch, we've not even. Anyway, on May 24th, 1973, Pedro was arrested. Not easily. There was a shootout. He was shot and he was captured, and then he healed. At this point, he was just 18, and he was sentenced to 126 years in prison. Unfortunately, the authorities hadn't really thought this through, because they took a man with an insatiable bloodlust for killing criminals and stuck him in an airtight box with an endless supply of other criminals. In one incident, Pedro was being transported with 2 other prisoners in a vehicle. On arrival at the destination, the police opted to discover that, despite being handcuffed, Pedro had managed to kill one of the men without the police noticing. Asked why, he said the man was a rapist. This was on the low end of Pedro's worrying exploits. He also managed to kill his father while in prison. As to why, Pedro's dad's domestic violence had climaxed in murdering his wife with a machete, and he was put in a prison. Pedro wanted revenge, swore it on his mother's coffin, and engineered a move to that prison. And I'm genuinely not making this up. Allegedly, he used a poisoned cake, like something out of real Agatha Christie, to be transferred to his father's prison. He then executed a plan that got him into his father's cell. He stabbed his father 22 times, one more than his father had stabbed his mum, cut his heart out and bit a chunk off it. Pedro would later claim he didn't kill because he loved killing. Not really sure where biting people's hearts fits into that excuse. He said it came from an anger and a need to revenge. The thing is, Pedro, if you're going to say you don't love killing, don't get a tattoo that says "I kill for pleasure," which is what he did. He also said if he didn't kill, he couldn't sleep, but I would advise insomniacs skip that as a reason. Weirdly, like all good DJs, he did requests. He learned to read in prison, and he discovered that people had been writing to him, requesting he kill people for them. Some even offered him money. He thought, well, I'm not accepting the money. That's the line. This is the line. He'll just completely kill you and eat you, but he will not accept payment for it. Thank you, Robin Hood. Anyway, he did follow through and kill several people to order. The media were turning this unrestrained psychopath into a vigilante hero. Finally, police authorities decided that putting a man who was single-handedly reducing the prison population into essentially his dream murder farm was not necessarily the best idea, and sent him to a maximum security psychiatric prison and kept him in solitary confinement. The murders stopped. At this point, he had killed possibly 100 people, 100% at least 71 people. You might be thinking they wouldn't let that man out of prison, but you'd be wrong. So his prison murders had been logged, and his sentence was now up to 400 years in prison. But incredibly, Brazil had a law that said no one sane should spend more than 30 years in prison. Arguably, this shouldn't apply to Pedro. There was a bit of jiggery-pokery, and after 34 years, the acknowledged killer in 71 murders, 47 while in prison, was released into the world. Pedro moved to a rural area and worked as a night watchman. This story hit international news, and writer Jeff Lindsay was inspired to create Dexter. The government weren't thrilled by this publicity, and in 2011 Pedro was arrested again and convicted of charges such as threatening people, illegal possession of weapons, and participation in illegal riots. He hadn't actually killed anybody in this second period of freedom, and there was a strong element of putting him in prison just for political reasons. However, after 7 years, he was released again. On his second release, Pedro's life took a sharp turn. He publicly denounced violence and vigilism, became a popular YouTube streamer, aided by the successor Dexter. Pedro advocated against gangs, against violence, and against the glorification of crime, while providing commentary on other murders. He was a national unloved celebrity despite killing his dad, brother-in-law, and over 100 others. Criminologist Lana Cassoy told Folha de Sao Paulo he was joyful, casual, intelligent. He fascinated people. A reflection of our society in a country where only 10% of homicides are brought to justice. So, although he said that he felt the urge to kill people, he had stopped, and he didn't. Unfortunately, when you kill over 100 people, you create a lot of enemies, and someone hadn't forgiven Pedro. On March 5th, 2023, around 10 a.m, 2 men drove up outside his house. They told a relative and their daughter to go inside, then shot Pedro 4 times and cut his throat as he was on the ground, fleeing in a second vehicle. They have never been caught. And that is the story of the Brazilian Dexter, the Brazilian Punisher, a man that thought he was right, even though right meant viciously murdering people with blades and then consuming them. So, what do we think? A bit of a spicy Batman, or just a complete lunatic with a good PR? Thanks, Tom. Still a better story than that Dexter novel, where I decided it was time to give up on this series. Not going to spoil it for anybody. The first few Dexter books are great. And then things happen. Not to my, I mean, people will still love them, I'm sure. Not to my personal taste at that point. Alice Rock says complete lunatic. Did crime go down as criminals were scared of being eaten? There's a story I've not put in this because I couldn't confirm it. Apparently, there was some sort of he had some sort of agreement with a prisoner, some sort of friendship with a prisoner. When this prisoner got out, I'm going to say interacted with some of Pedro's family. Let's just say that turned bad, and this man was sent back into prison. Unfortunately, they sent him back into the same prison as Pedro, so he didn't last very long. Again, I couldn't get confirmation on that, so I'm not going to go into huge details, because I don't really like doing stuff that I'm not 100% sure of. So, but yeah. There's a few other legends around Pedro that I couldn't get any. There's a kind of mystical cult side of this story that I'm not sure if it's just newspaper gumph, especially as I'm having to read translated Portuguese newspapers. I don't know. I wasn't comfortable putting that down as a fact, so we'll see. But I will say that Google Translate does let me do these global stories in a way that would have been impossible 20 years ago. So that's brilliant. Cindy says, I'm happy I didn't live next door to you. Yeah. Right, we'll take a little break and do one of the short ones I've got lined up. So this is a new right, I've got 3 short stories lined up. Let's rank them in order of weirdness. Not pretty vanilla. Pretty vanilla. Then chocolate. Then salted caramel. What would we like? Not llama stitch, sorry. Chocolate, okay, Alice, chocolate. So this is a story that came out today. Well, this is confirmation of this came out today. Robert Tells, 47, was a Nevada politician. He held public office for a time, and during that public office, there was a journalist who was particularly critical of him. Investigative journalist Jeff German. So we have now, a trial has been held, and we have now proof that when Robert Tells left public office, he was so annoyed by journalist Jeff German, he went round and stabbed him to death. Which, we've all had bad reviews, but we don't all go around and stab people. Evidence in the trial included the person who was a bit extreme, says Alex. A bit extreme, Write some angry letters, maybe a few scathing tweets. That's what we're supposed to do these days. He wore a particular outfit when he attempted to kill, well, when he did kill the journalist. Sadly, he hadn't planned for the fact that cutting up the outfit to destroy it is fine, but not when you leave the cut up bits in your own house. That doesn't help. That really doesn't help, does it? Because all you've got then is a jigsaw telling people. And also, his car was seen driving around, being driven by a man in that outfit. Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, he's a politician, so obviously he's not really functioning fully. Hello, Steve. Good to see you. You're just in time for the second story. SMF Remixes is the DJ guys of the excellent Steve Forward. He is a guitarist. He is a DJ. He is a gamer. He's very good at DIY as well. And he is exceptional at Halloween houses. There's nothing. A curry's a curry, man. You've got to have your curry. I will. In fact, I think we'll have to. No, we'll save my brand new scene because we're going to need it in a minute. Right. So, let's have a look at story number 2. Anything but getting a real day job. Yeah, sore point. This is a story. Well, last week, we did GIMPs. No, we didn't do GIMPs. The research did not go that far. We talked about GIMPs. So I thought we could do something a bit more hardcore this week. As Ditch points out, we have just talked about a man that used to eat bits of people, so we do need to make sure that it is a curry and not an actual Indian. Yeah, I think we're safe. Sororicide is the act of killing your sister. Sounds a bit Game of Thrones. This is always bad enough. I'm going to talk to you about the case of Paris Bennett. I'm not telling you the story of Paris Bennett because it is many people have found it a lurid and fascinating crime story. I'm telling you about the case of Paris Bennett because there is an absolutely massive upcoming problem about Paris Bennett that we need a solution for. Anyway, so the question is, when does a psychopath? Fratricide is killing your brother, sororicide is killing your sister. So when does a psychopath first feel violent urges? We would hope that age was sort of fairly high. We have an image of young people as being relatively sort of innocent. Paris Bennett claimed he had felt an urge to murder since a very young age. Before he turned 13, he had committed several violent but non-lethal acts. He had sought out violent porn, which he consumed in large amounts. He had attempted to find snuff videos. He had also developed a very high IQ. He had tried to stab his mother and been in a mental hospital. But we'll come back to that because there's a problem. His upbringing may have been partially responsible for what happened. His mother was Charity Bennett and her parents were Kyla and James. James had been murdered only days after the pair had remarried, and Kyla was charged with hiring the person who did it. A trial found her innocent, but there was a great deal of controversy. Judge J.W. Williford noted, "I've never seen a case with so many angles, so many reasonable hypotheses." Charity would later become convinced her mother Kyla had actually done it, even though she was found innocent. She then became so desperate for love and attention from her mother, she started taking heroin, beginning a battle with addiction. It was her pregnancy with Paris that led her to become stable. The year before the murder, though, Charity had relapsed and spent 6 months on cocaine. Paris had apparently become absolutely livid at his mother during this period. And after he tried to stab her, he was sent to a mental hospital. Charity was told he, even at this age, was a genuine danger, but Charity had him brought back home and tried not to tell many people about the incidents. Paris was drawing images of murder and making comments about killing. The signs were all here. That even at 13, Paris was an exceptionally damaged young man. Thank you for using my poly emotes and my other emotes. We will be getting to. We're gonna need my new scene in a minute. So all the signs were there that Pedro was going to do something terrible. It turns out that he did something even more terrible than you're probably imagining. In his damaged and confused mind, he decided that the best way to hurt his mother would be to take both of her children away. This meant killing his 4-year-old sister Ella and having himself put in prison. And so, on February 7th, 2007, Charity went to her shift at a Texan Buffalo Wild Wings, leaving her children with a babysitter. Paris persuaded the babysitter to leave, went upstairs, choked, beat, and stabbed Ella 17 times, in a frenzy, slow, methodical cuts. Yeah, that's quite brutal. So we now have some scenes. Calm blue oceans, calm blue oceans. I've just remembered. If you weren't here earlier, this is Pedro, the maniac vigilante. That's what he looks like. That's also what he looks like. Looked like he's dead now. But we also have this. When things get a bit too extreme, we can bring Polly in because she's not coming in. If you're wondering, so this is the man. This is the 13-year-old that decided to kill his 4-year-old sister to annoy his mother. Having killed her, he called a friend and didn't mention it, just casually chatted. Jimi Hendrix just spoke to me via Ouija board. He said, "Can he have his hair back?" Someone had with treats. She's very bribable. Yeah, but we tried that last week, and well, she has been walking about. We could try the treats in a minute. So that's him. He then called 911 and said, "I accidentally killed somebody." Asked if he thought he did. He said, "No, I know I did, my sister. I feel so messed up." He then told them that his sister had become a flaming pumpkin-headed demon which he'd stabbed. Before anybody, this was his attempt to appear insane, and everyone saw through it. They then tried to talk him into giving CPR, but he just pretended. When emergency services arrived, Paris was arrested. Police believed the pumpkin story was an attempt to fake an insanity plea, but Paris soon confessed his motive. Oh, thank you for the gigantified Polly. He soon confessed his motive. He wanted to make his mother suffer for the rest of her life. Initially, he'd planned to kill her too, but he realised she'd suffer more as she lived. Ella was dead, and Pedro was in prison. Years later, Charity claimed that the murder was purely so that Ella couldn't tell anybody about an incident of sexual abuse that he committed that night. This was in none of the original reports on the case, and only came out later. So I'm a bit sceptical about giving that 100% factual status. He was charged as a minor for capital murder, which he pled guilty to in a juvenile court. He was given the maximum sentence allowed under the law, which was 40 years with parole possible after 20. And this is a problem. Thank you for all the gigantify, Steve. And this is a problem because even if he is denied parole, he will be allowed out in 2047, fit and very probably dangerous. Experts are adamant that he cannot be cured, and yet he might be released. To the surprise of many, including Paris, Charity had stayed in contact with her son, but he would say things to her like, "By the way, I enjoy watching your pain." She had a new child, Phoenix, but it became apparent that if Pedro got out at any point, which he will if he lives long enough, he is a danger to both of them, and at that point she knows she has to go into hiding when he's released. He's so dangerous that despite being in a prison-controlled visiting environment, he managed to grab and choke her. It says you and I need to sit down and work on a definition of happier. Weirdly, he did an interview with British TV presenter Piers Morgan. The sort of TV interview where the serial killer isn't the worst one. He said, the only person I'm dangerous to now is myself, because the moment I feel the chain slipping and the bars bending, the moment I detect that dark part of myself coming back, I would remove that myself from the equation. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that at all, Pedro. Paris, this is what it looks like now. The thing is, Paris, if you're going to try and convince people you're not evil, going for the full Lex Luthor is not the way. I mean, yeah. He also decided to drop a bit of Margaret Atwood into the interview in an attempt to justify himself. He said, every single person walking around has it in him or her to commit murder. Margaret Atwood once wrote that if we were all on trial for our thoughts, we would all be hanged. Yes, the difference there, Paris, is that they're thoughts and you did actually kill somebody. So it's not that helpful, is it? It's not that helpful, is it? I don't know why I'm joking, because they're going to release the guy and he's going to go out and murder people. Probably me now. So, and this is why I'm discussing Pedro. It's not Paris. It's not a particularly intriguing story. We know everything that happened. It's just that we know that this guy is an unredeemable violent lunatic, and we know that if he lives, he's going to get that out, and that's going to be very bad. So that's the problem. It's hard to say what people would be capable of in the right circumstances or wrong circumstances. Yeah, it is. It is entirely. And I think there is a bit of truth in Margaret Atwood's quote and what he's saying at the end there. The problem is, in this circumstance, we've got a fair idea what the circumstances are and what he's capable of, and it's a bit of an issue. Right, I do feel we need some cuteness. I do feel we need some cuteness to balance that out. We'll just look at the kitty. Look at the kitty. Are you coming in? No. So now we're going to do another short, which is a story that was in the news this week. This is a genuine story. All right, and I'm laughing. Like, this isn't funny, but in a sense, I'm not really sure what the man in this expected to happen. Really, So a Philadelphia rapper. And I genuinely have no idea how to pronounce his name. It's YBCDUL. So this is a Philadelphia rapper, YBCDUL. I'm not going to murder his name. He was shot and killed in West Philadelphia. You may be thinking, is that why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Would you like to guess why somebody got annoyed with him and killed him? Yeah, well, obviously, partly West Philadelphia, born and raised, and the playground is West Philadelphia. So this guy had, on the scale of antagonising people and inevitably going to be murdered for it, this guy went viral for filming and releasing that film of him literally digging up a rival's grave. He thought it would be a good idea to film himself digging up the grave and then put it on the internet. Unsurprisingly, he got killed. I'm not really sure what he was expecting to happen at this point. Mental note, research how to pronounce names before you actually have to pronounce the names. Because I've been reading this story all week. And the thing about reading a story is you don't necessarily have to have the pronunciation in your head. You see the words. So now I'm sat here now going, I didn't work out how to say his name. Must do that. Anyway, so there's your music story for this week. Also, the second story this week connected to the Punisher, which is a bit surprising. TikTok generation, yeah. Thank you. Right now, this last story, is in a sense important, and we're doing it because as many eyes that are on this story as possible, the better. I'm not claiming that many people are necessarily going to watch this show, or it will in any way lead to anything. But the more eyes that are on it, the better. And even the police are like, if you have even the slightest tip, let us know. We're not going to get mad if it's wrong. We're literally looking at everything. Right, so we're doing the enigmatic disappearance of Timmothy Pitzen. I'll explain what these photos are in a minute. For those of you in Britain, that's Timothy spelt with 2 M's, which I know sounds like a sort of ever-decreasing circles character, but I really should make this one funny because this is. So you do pronounce it YBC Dull. Thank you, C1. Yeah, well, this is the Steve. Right, so on the left, Steve, is the last known photo of this boy. The photo on the right is the latest aged-up version. Every 2 years, the police produce a new computer-generated aged-up photo. Because if they were showing this photo on the left to people, it would be bugger all help at all. Now, in 2024, this photo on the right is basically him at 19. So if you see this guy, if you do see someone that looks like this guy, might be worth asking him if he knows who his parents are, because he might not. Yeah, yeah, this is why I'm going to keep these photos on throughout the whole thing, because there is very much an ongoing search for this boy. I'm going to try and keep this one positive, even though, if I'm being honest, it does feel like the weight of evidence is pointing to a negative situation. But I don't want to make this. I don't. So we're going to try and be as positive as possible, even though I don't think it is. Anyway, so Timmothy Pitzen, you'll find that this is slightly interesting as well. So Timmothy Pitzen was born in Aurora, Illinois on October 18th, 2004, to James Pitzen and Amy Jo Marie Fry Pitzen. I assume the fact he was called Timothy with 2 M's is from the fact she had a double-barreled name. It's all. Anyway, he appears to have had a perfectly normal childhood. James would later describe how much Amy cared for him. Timothy was the apple of her eye. Timothy made her a better mum. Timothy was one person she would never do anything to. Yeah, you can see where this is going. He said that Timothy got along with everybody, to run down the street. He was always happy. It was always fun to be around. But then there was a problem. On May 11th, 2011, his father delivered him to his kindergarten class on time as normal. However, between 8 o'clock and 8:30 that morning, his mother arrived, said there was a family emergency, and took him out of school. There was no family emergency. Amy took Timothy to a garage, left a car for repair, and the staff drove her to a nearby zoo, which they explored until they returned and they collected the car at 3 p.m. Amy then drove to the Keyline Cove Resort, where they slept the night. The next day they woke and drove to the Kalahari resort in Wisconsin. They stayed here, again stayed the night, and at 10 a.m. the next day, Timmothy can be seen on security footage in the checkout queue. For 90 minutes after midday on the 3rd, Amy made a number of calls to her family, including her mother and brother-in-law, but she pointedly did not call her husband. Unfortunately, she started to say things like, "Timothy is fine, Timothy belongs to me, Timothy and I will be fine, Timothy is safe." Timothy could be heard talking in the background of these calls. Unfortunately, this is the last trace of Timothy anyone has ever found. The calls were made near Route 40, northwest of Sterling in Illinois. The next trace of Amy was at 7:25 p.m. buying stationery at a Family Dollar store in Winnebago, Illinois. Security cameras show at this point she was alone. At 11:15 p.m. she checked into a hotel in Rockford, Illinois, and sometime in the night committed suicide. She took an overdose of antihistamines and cut her wrists. The body was found just after midday on the 14th by staff. Amy was definitely dead. It was definitely a suicide, and she had left a note. It apologised, but stated that Timothy was safe and was with people who would look after him, and he would never be found. Police investigated. At first they were concerned by blood in the car that matched Timothy's, but this was explained as having come from a nosebleed. A letter then arrived at Amy's mother stating, "I've taken him somewhere safe. He will be well cared for, and he says that he loves you. Please know there is nothing you could have done or said that would have changed my mind." Police looked on. It turned out that Amy had struggled with depression, her marriage was on the rocks, and she had survived a previous suicide attempt. A few years before, James had caught Amy messaging her ex-husband, and he gave her an ultimatum: stay in this marriage or go do whatever you want, but James would get custody of Timothy. The investigation is ongoing, and while Timothy remains missing, police proceed as if he's alive. There remains the possibility that Amy did kill Timothy and disposed of the body, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Police are trying every possible tool and technology. Indeed, the police are being so thorough, they are trying to track the particles of mud on Amy's vehicle's tyres. They work with Microtrace, a private company, to work out where elements in the dirt might have originated from to see if they can narrow the area. They had some success. Research microscopist Christopher Palanek is quoted as saying there's an unexpected mineral found in the soil called anhydrite, and if we can figure out where this mineral is occurring and why it's in the soil, it could give us a lot of information about where the mud originated. That's from my Stateline.com article. They searched vast acres of the country around where Amy placed her last phone call. They thought they caught a break when with Amy's cell phone. It was missing when her body was found, but in October 2013 it was handed in. It turned out somebody had found it on Illinois Route 78 and just kept it, never switching it on, until their brother needed a phone. They gave it to him, he switched it on, and they recognised Amy and James Pitzen. It was taken straight to police, but sadly did not in any way advance the case. Images of what Timothy would look like now are made every 2 years using digital age progression techniques. As you can see the latest image on there. Police will happily, they say they will happily follow up any tip, and if it's wrong, they thank people for calling in. The police believe if he's alive, this is a tip is how it will finally be solved. There was some confusion, however, in 2019 on April 3rd. A teenager was found wandering, confused and distressed, claiming he was Timothy. However, the FBI soon found out he was a 23-year-old called Brian, who'd just been let out of prison and was deeply mentally ill. He was sent to 2 years inside for the hoax. So, James Pitzen remains convinced his son is alive. He says, "I know he's alive. He's alive somewhere. Amy would never do anything to hurt Timothy. Timothy was like her little prince." Aurora detective Lee Catterview explained to the Chicago Tribune that, in a sense, the great hope is that Timothy was old enough when he disappeared to know who his parents were. At some point he will become old enough to want to explore his childhood, to want to explore those memories. He would now look like in the photo. He would be at least 19. he may, if enough of this news is spread around, if he's kept in the media, may see himself, may realise that something is up. Timothy's schoolmate Hannah and his grandmother Linda share the theory that Timothy was taken to a particularly conservative Mormon group where he was growing up with no access to internet or the media. This isn't just some random anti-Mormon theory. Amy had connections to the Mormon church and had discussed involvement further with James. So that's me trying to put a rather positive spin on the great mystery of who Amy gave Timothy to and where he might be. I have to be honest. There is, I would think, a substantial chance that someone having that sort of breakdown, using the phrase, he's with people who will look after him and he will never be found, that he may not, be alive. She may be referring to heaven. He may be buried out there somewhere. That's not a very happy thing to think about, so maybe the quest to find him will one day be successful. I know what you're thinking. Oh, that was a bit heavy cat time. Ditchers, have they checked the orphanages? I believe the police checked pretty much everywhere. But there is no... realistically speaking, they have absolutely no idea where he could be. He may not even... He could have gone to Canada. They don't know who he was handed to. If he was handed to somebody, they don't know who he was handed to. You would think, if you were going to be taking that child, you would not stay in the area. They could be anywhere at this point. It's a very enigmatic case. Yeah, so the first thing I need to point out is the knife that she used to kill herself with. They took that apart, and there is only her blood on it. So however, now, there is an aspect to this. I haven't seen this piece of information in enough of the documentation to be 100% sure. There is a suggestion, which I haven't been able to confirm, which is why it's in this appendix section, that there is, when Amy was found, there is a set of clothes missing. She was not in... she had changed her clothing, which is normal, but some of the clothing was gone, which again is not a good sign. But yes, as you say, Ditch, the police have pored all over this, the family have pored all over this. There is no evidence that she had ever harmed him or had ever had any intention of harming him in any way. Yeah, it's as if she killed him to stop her husband getting him. You think she might have indicated that. Well, there's two parts to that. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but leaving that sort of enigmatic note is incredibly cruel on the surviving family. Because now you're chasing them forever. You have no idea. They are not sat there going, "Oh, I feel okay. He's safe." No, they want him back. They want him with his family. It's a very brutal thing to do. It is in a sense, it's a form of revenge. Possibly. I don't know if anyone agrees with that. Thank you for the gigantify of the emote that's probably most appropriate for that. I also want to refute something that I've seen on the internet. A lot of people on the internet have said A lot of people on the internet have wondered if she was fleeing her husband for some reason, and that Timothy was in danger. I don't believe there is any evidence that Timothy was in danger from his father. I think we need to clear that up. It says it strikes me unlikely that she would have thought the enigmatic note would be... Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's just a possibility from what you were saying. The thing is, there is... you don't need to have had any previous signs of hurting somebody to then have that kind of mental break that would lead you into suicide. Yeah, exactly. That's what I believe as well, Ditch. Anything that happened was purely due to that instance of a break, and when that sort of break happens, anything's possible. It truly is. It doesn't really matter what you've been like before, and it doesn't really matter what you say in your notes. You're not, she may actually genuinely believe he's with safe people who will look after him and he'll never be found because he's in heaven or something, So that is a possibility, but he could be out there, and one day he could find something on the internet and see somebody that looks very much like himself. Yes, it's right. The note is what she thought had happened, which doesn't necessarily bear any resemblance to reality. He may see one of these images and wonder why it looks like him. He may see this story. There is. We don't know, so there is still hope that he might be found. Right. Well, that's a bit of we've done that one as a bit of a public service broadcast, if you see what I mean. Try to take that one a bit more seriously because there's an ongoing case. But now I want to cover a news story that came out today. So there's a news story today. So there's been a lot in the news about shoplifting. Do I have any stats on how many of these people actually turn up? I don't have the precise numbers, but it's not a positive figure. It really isn't. Yeah, you want to be depressed, I'll tell you how many people go missing and never get found. That'll depress you. Jesus. So there's been a lot of stuff in the news about shoplifting and the increase in shoplifting. And there was a fascinating interview on the BBC today. Actually, I'm going to... Right. So, so a lot of people go missing and a lot of people are never found. More people than you might think completely vanish and are never found. Ever. And that includes people that want to disappear as well as people that might not have wanted to disappear. In fact, it's mostly people that want to disappear. But I should get the statistics because it's far bigger than you might think. It's actually quite a major thing. But in instances like this, it's actually really low that somebody does end up alive. They tend to not end up alive, sadly. But now, I was once browsing, about 20 years ago, I was browsing Amazon. And I discovered 2 books. These books are missing persons in American forests. How many people have ended up on the practice table of medical students? It's funny, actually. I was thinking of doing a Victorian poisoners special. Get some medical students in. So it was missing persons in American forests, and it wasn't an official book, but they had tried to collate as many stories and statistics as they could about people that went missing in American forests. And at first I was like, this is a really weird niche book to have written. Why have they written this book? So I check it out, I look it up, I look into the book and into their websites, right? And they're very coy about why they've written this book. They're trying to make this book look completely serious. But it's actually Bigfoot, right? They are trying to imply that Bigfoots in the various parts of America murder a lot of people. But they've not released a book called Bigfoots Murder a Lot. Bigfoots eat you if you go into the forest. They put out a very sensible sounding book to make the point that there's a lot of disappearances in forests. And then at the end just tickled Bigfoot in. By the way, what could have caused this? Ooh. Yeah. Which I thought was brilliant. I need to... Bigfoots or big feets? I don't know what the collective noun for Bigfoot is. It may be big feets. I'll tell you one thing. The Bigfoot community is so big, there will be a collective noun. In fact, there's probably a civil war over the collective noun. I really need to look up to see if that book is available, if there's volume 3, if it's progressed. I would have bought it, but it was quite expensive for a man that had almost no income at the time. Also, it was quite expensive for a book you in no way would ever find useful in under any circumstances, other than going, hey, do you want to see this book and think I'm a complete weirdo for owning it? And I've got a lot of books like that already, I'll be honest. That's why I just live with a cat. And a disbelief of Bigfoots. Yeah. So, I just looked that up, but yeah, I mean, I just thought it was such a brilliant way. You own weirder books, some of which I bought you. Yes, this is true. I do own a lot of weird books. And who knows, maybe the spooky stream, which is 2 months away, 8 weeks to the spooky stream. What horrors will I inflict on you? It's great, right? Yeah. Writing the spooky stream is great because I don't have to sit there and go, well, this sounds very interesting, but I'm not entirely convinced this newspaper hasn't just made it up. Which happens quite a bit, unfortunately. Yeah, maybe we'll see. I'll take this off. We don't need him. Sorry, we don't need you on anymore. Yes. 14 Times have covered Bigfoot many, many times. In fact, they have a monthly cryptozoology column. They've covered all. At this point, I think they've covered every piece of cryptozoology possible 20 times. But I love it. It's great. But yes, you're not weird until you live with 26 cats. Yes, that is galaxy level cat lady. That's good. Yeah, can you imagine? Right, so Thelonious has to have 26 of that at once, probably. I think Thelonious, what I'll say, Thelonious, that if you were doing a stream where lots of people want to see a cat, having 26 cats might ensure that at least one turns up. Because I can tell you, having one cat is proving very unreliable. In fact, there's probably people who have come into this stream in the last few weeks, sat there going, you don't have a cat, I've never seen a cat, there's no cat. But there is a cat. As Steve, SMF Remixes, will attest. I was talking to Steve earlier, and Polly managed to turn the computer off. My PC has an on and off switch on the top. I have to put a cover. I have a special poly cover over the top of my on and off switch to stop her turning it off. Because when she jumps up, that's where she puts up one of her paws. The thing is, she had managed to so dislodge everything, the poly cover had come off and the computer switched off. And I'm starting a new job next week, and it would probably be a good idea if during any sort of online professionalism my cat didn't turn the computer off, so she may get locked out. Yes, she has. Since she's become fully healthy, her fur has achieved a beautiful level of softness. True royal fluff. Yeah, it's, once she got fully healthy, her ears got these little tufts that appeared on the top. It's so cute. It is. I would show you, but yeah, she's a cat and it's therefore not doing what I want. You play Where's Wally with the bunnies then to the mix. Yeah. So one last thing to go. There's she's probably asleep at the top of the stairs. She probably is. I need to work. I wonder if I can get a cat cam that I can carry around. Just like, I don't know how to connect a portable camera to OBS, so I can go and zoom in on Polly. If anyone knows a cost-effective way of doing that, do feel free to whisper me, because I'm stupid enough to do that for my cat. Yes, there is absolutely no way I could attach a camera to her. Not if I liked fingers, which I do. Also, it would make her sad, which I don't do either. So yeah, one last story, and this is more like hearty one. So there's a lot of stories in the news about shoplifters. The BBC interviewed a shoplifter today. They have 15 convictions for shoplifting. They were stealing £300 worth of stuff every day to fund a crack and heroin addiction. The thing is, it turns out that they were stealing stuff from shops to sell to other shops. They were acting as kind of, in their words, a cheap wholesaler. Shops would be like, "Oh, I need this." So we'd go and nick it, come back, and the shop would be like, "In the back. Oh yeah, here's some money." I'm sure there's a name for that sort of commerce, but not sure. Did you like the maple gammon, by the way? The maple gammon has a very long expiry date and will be eaten this weekend. So I've not eaten it yet. We are building up. I will say, so Ditch and I went to Aldi during the week, last Friday in fact, and I brought some interesting foods I haven't had before. And I will say that although most of it's been lovely, I'm going to be honest with you, Ditch, the duck burgers were not to my palate. I think it's the hoisin sauce. I don't really like hoisin sauce. And I had one of the burgers and I was like, yeah, I think that's it. However, last night, today I had the maple. Was it maple? Oh, I had the tandoori steaks and they were delicious. And Polly loves the treats you got her. So, you experiment, you try these things. And that's the way to do it. Yeah, so that is this week's stream. I have some news for you. So as I mentioned, I'm starting a new job next week, which is going to require some timing changes. Now, I haven't tried her on the catnip treats yet. I'm waiting. I'm a bit like, should we have the catnip treats? Should we not have the catnip treats today? I shall see. So, for the next few weeks, the stream will start at 11 p.m. UK time. That will happen for a few weeks, and it will probably go to a weekend evening, night. I think, but just for the foreseeable, we will start at 11, and then we will run through, and that shouldn't cause too much of a problem. So thank you everybody for tonight. Glad you enjoyed it. Depends on how your hours pan out at work. Yes, yeah. We may move to the weekend a lot sooner, depending on how things pan out. So the next couple of weeks is basically exploring and learning a whole new lifestyle, which is going to be interesting. And then the stream will settle down into a regular slot again. So the stream's not going to end. The stream's going to carry on. We're just going to need a bit of adjustment. So hopefully everybody can still make when we move it to. I'll be sorry if you can't. But there's just no way I can do a midnight stream and then get up at 7 a.m. You know. So we shall see. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. And now it's time to find a raid. If anyone has any, there's not quite enough money in true crime streaming. I love doing this. This is a great thing to do. I don't do this for the money. Polly needs treats. Polly needs a lot of treats. That was a roller coaster. Yeah. If we want something a bit more stupid and salacious next week, you know, I'm not saying we'll bring the gimps back, but you know. If anyone has any raid suggestions, otherwise I will see who is on. You've not forgotten about the band story. It's not really fantastically gruesome or weird or horror. It's just such a downer buzzkill that I didn't think we needed it. But maybe. I think the thing is, although it's an unsolved mystery, there's not really anything remarkable or necessarily interesting or to get into. It is essentially just a very sad, unpleasant incident. And I was just reading this, like, there's nothing here. This is just terrible, and there's no real reason. When we get the Copycat Llamas, Copycat stream. I think Copycat's going to have a bit of work because it could be quite a chunky one. There could be lots of information. So that will probably be when things are settled in a few weeks. Llamas, maybe we'll have llamas next week. I don't know if there are llama crimes, but I will do my best to find llama crimes. My search history is going to look up. The guy at the NSA right now is going, did that guy just search llamas? He's been reading about murderers all day for this. Llamas. So we shall see what we can find with llamas. Copycats will happen, but we're building up to that one. Right, raid target. Let's see what we've got. I think I found the one. Well, that's an interesting one, Tom. How many people Scarfield got in? He's not got too many. I think what we're going to do, because I want to leave you with a laugh and telling you this. So we're going to raid some people called the Crafty Club. Sounds perfectly innocent and normal. They're currently doing what I think is crochet. Sounds really innocent and normal. What do they call themselves in chat? Because they're doing crochet. The Dirty Hookers. So join me as we go and raid what should have been an innocent and wholesome crochet channel, which has been turned into filth. Don't tell them, for God's sake, don't tell them I said that. Oh no! I've just realised people go back and watch what people have said before the raid. Oh, I'm doomed. Oh, I'm in so much trouble. Anyway, we're going to go and raid a brilliant craft stream with, it would appear, a brilliant sense of humour. I hope they don't look with this. Oh God. No, but right. The raid tag is not filth. Yeah, thanks, Dix. Yeah, Dirty Hook is definitely allowed. Oh, Jesus. My wife calls herself a hooker. She loves crochet. There we go. There we see. This is a thing. It's just a thing. It's normal. It's fine. Unsurprisingly, it's an 18+ crochet strap. I mean, who'd have seen that coming? Hooker is a position in rugby. Yeah, yes. Yeah. You don't want to get those confused on a night out, do you, Ditch? I don't know. Right, does this work? Oh no! The channel has disabled raids. We can't raid them. Oh no! Well, I don't feel bad about saying they're filth now. Oh well. This channel says it does art, but it appears to be doing a DJ set. And it's not in the DJ channel. Oh well. You raid tease you, yeah. I did. I was selling that so well, and then I can't. They won't let me raid them. Yeah, you're right, Tom. Let's go and raid Matt Scarefield. Matt is a great drummer. He's got a good setup. He's a good chap. So if you want some rock drums, we'll just go and raid Matt Scarefield. He's good. Not as good as Tom, because Tom has the soul and the character that I prefer on a drum stream. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I genuinely do prefer you, Tom. But good to see. But you're not on now, so we'll just have to go and raid. Right, Matt Scarefield. You understand? I'm still shouting filth at you. Yeah, I mean, try not to get banned, Ditch. I'm not really sure how that'll go. Right, everybody. Let me set up the raid first because of professional and all that. All right, everybody. I hope. There's normally a button that lets me maybe this will disappear in a minute. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining. Being here tonight. I've had a great time with you all. See you back next week at 11. There's normally a button to let me rate, but there isn't. Mark, whatever you do, don't press the red button. I generally don't know where the where's the... That was a bad idea. Pro streamer, yeah. I generally don't know where the button is to trigger the raid. It says the raid has been created, but there's no button. I'm looking around. It'll time over. I hope so. Refresh page F5. F5. That's working well. It's not even refreshing the right page. I think we're just going to have to give up, everybody, because I'll try this button. I've changed the layout, so some different buttons have appeared. And we will try it this way. Okay, I think it's working now. Right, for about the 8 millionth time, thank you for bearing with this nonsense. I will see you next week. Love you all.